Iran's constitution says the country is 99% Muslim, but ask Iranians anonymously, and a completely different picture appears. One where roughly half the population may no longer identify as Muslim at all. So, which number is true? Stick around, because this is one of the most surprising religious stories in the world today. Hey everyone! Today, we're diving into a question that sounds simple, but is actually incredibly complicated. What religion do Iranians believe in? You'd think this is easy to answer. Iran is officially an Islamic republic. Its laws are based on Shia Islamic law. Its supreme leader is a religious cleric. Case closed, right? Not even close. Because when you look at official numbers versus independent research, you find two very different Irans. Let's break down both, with real data, real sources, and zero assumptions. Let's start with the official story. According to Iran's own 2011 national census, 99.4% of the population identified as Muslim. The CIA World Factbook backs this up with a similar number, around 98.5%. Of that Muslim population, the vast majority, somewhere between 90 and 95%, are Shia Muslims. This matters because Iran is actually the largest Shia majority country in the world, and it's the spiritual and political center of Shia Islam globally. The remaining 5 to 10% of Muslims in Iran are Sunni, concentrated mostly among ethnic minorities like the Baluch, Kurds, and Turkmen in Iran's border regions. So on paper, Iran looks almost uniformly Shia Muslim. But here's where it gets interesting. Because face-to-face and phone surveys in a country with strict religious laws and real legal consequences for apostasy tend to produce numbers that may not reflect what people privately believe. This is where a research group called GAMAAN, the Group for Analyzing and Measuring Attitudes in Iran, comes in. GAMAAN realized something important. If you ask an Iranian their religion over the phone, or face-to-face, there's a fear factor. People may answer what's expected of them, not what they actually believe. So instead, GAMAAN ran large-scale anonymous online surveys, using social media, VPN networks, and satellite platforms to reach people privately without anyone knowing who answered what. The first major survey, in 2020, had over 50,000 respondents. Later surveys in 2022 and 2023 had even more. One had over 150,000 participants. And the results were staggering. In the 2020 survey, only about 32% of respondents identified as Shia Muslim. Another 5% identified as Sunni Muslim. That means only around 37% identified with an Islamic sect at all. So what did the rest say? About 9% identified as atheist. Around 8% identified as Zoroastrian, the ancient pre-Islamic religion of Persia. About 7% called themselves spiritual without a specific religion. 6% identified as agnostic. Smaller percentages followed Sufism, humanism, Christianity, the Baha'i faith, or Judaism. And 22% didn't identify with any of the listed categories. Later surveys, in 2022 and 2023, found similar patterns, with atheist identification ranging between 7 and 10%, and a large combined block of atheists, agnostics, nuns, and spiritual but not religious people making up close to half the population when grouped together. Now here's a nuance that's really important. Identifying with a religious label and believing in God are two different things. The same 2020 GAMAAN survey found that 78% of Iranians still say they believe in God, but fewer believe in the specifics tied to organized religion. Only 37% believe in life after death. Only 30% believe in heaven and hell, 26% believe in jinns, and 26% believe in the return of a savior figure. So many Iranians hold on to a general belief in a higher power, while stepping away from institutional religious identity and traditional theological doctrines. Other researchers, like Gallup, have found different numbers depending on how the question is asked. A 2024 Gallup report found 72% of Iranians described themselves as religious. 27% said they were not religious, and 1% identified as atheist. Notice how different this is from GAMAAN's numbers. And that's exactly the point. The methodology changes the answer dramatically, especially in a country where religious identity is politically sensitive. Here's another fascinating data point. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Shia clerics were among the most trusted figures in Iranian society. But a confidential 2023 survey commissioned by Iran's own Ministry of Islamic Guidance and Culture found that only 25% of respondents said they still had some level of trust in clerics. More than half, 56%, said they had little to no trust at all. This is a massive shift from pre-revolutionary Iran, and it tells us something important. Even government-commissioned research is picking up on declining religious trust, not just outside surveys. Iran isn't just Muslim and non-religious. It has some of the oldest religious minority communities in the world. Zoroastrianism, the ancient religion of pre-Islamic Persia, founded by the prophet Zoroaster, is still practiced today, mostly in cities like Yazd and Kerman. Interestingly, GAMAAN's surveys found that a notable share of Iranians who don't practice it religiously still identify with Zoroastrianism as a cultural or national symbol of pre-Islamic Persian identity. Christianity in Iran includes an estimated 300,000 to 370,000 people, with the Armenian Apostolic Church being the largest and oldest Christian community, dating back centuries. The Baha'i faith has an estimated 300,000 to 350,000 adherents in Iran, making it the country's largest non-Muslim religious minority. However, Baha'is are not recognized by the Constitution and have historically faced serious persecution. Smaller communities include Jews, one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world, dating back to the Babylonian exile, as well as Mandeans, followers of Yarsanism, and various tribal and local religious traditions. So why does this all matter? Because Iran shows us something important about researching religion in any country with legal or social pressure around religious identity. The official numbers and the private numbers can tell two very different stories. GAMAAN's researchers themselves are careful to note their surveys aren't perfect either. Online-only surveys skew toward more educated, internet-connected, and often younger populations. So the reality likely sits somewhere between the census's 99% and GAMAAN's roughly 37% Muslim identification. But almost every serious independent researcher agrees on one thing. Religious identity in Iran is far more diverse and far more secular than the official narrative suggests. So what religion do Iranians believe in? The honest answer is, it depends who you ask, how you ask them, and whether they feel safe telling you the truth. Officially, Iran is over 98% Muslim. Privately, according to some of the largest anonymous surveys ever conducted in the country, that number may be closer to a third to a half of the population, with a huge and growing portion identifying as atheist, agnostic, spiritual, Zoroastrian, or simply none. What's clear is this: Iran's religious landscape is shifting, and the generation gap is real. Younger, more educated Iranians show the strongest movement away from traditional religious identification. Now I want to hear from you. If you're Iranian or have Iranian family, does this match what you've seen in your own family or community? Do you think the real number is closer to the census or closer to GAMAAN's surveys? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Respectfully, this is a sensitive topic for a lot of people, so let's keep the conversation kind and open-minded. And if you found this breakdown interesting, hit subscribe for more deep dives into culture, religion, and identity around the world. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.